We'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Tartan Talk titled Patience and Persistence, Enjoying the Road to Success with Ed Wimp, class of 2012. My name is Jordan Sherpy-Lencioni, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement here at Monmouth College. We're so thrilled that you're able to join us this afternoon. Before we begin, just to cover a few housekeeping items, today's event will be recorded and will be available on the Monmouth College website within a few days. For the best viewing experience for today's presentation, please just ensure that you are on speaker mode. That way you can see all of Ed's slides. And then at the end, we will ask for you to turn your camera on if you're comfortable, and then we'll be able to have a conversation and question and answer with Ed at that time. You're also able to ask any questions or shout outs during the presentation by using the chat feature below. At the end of today's event, you will see a short 3-minute survey pop up on your screen. We ask that you just fill that out, let us know what you thought about the event, and also any events that you'd like to see in the future done virtually through Monmouth College. Now, a little bit about our presenter today. Ed Wimp graduated Monmouth College in 2012, where he earned his degree in business administration and a minor in political science. While at Monmouth, Ed pitched for the baseball team as well as played guitar in the jazz band. He then proceeded to attend Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida, where he earned his MS in entertainment business before attending Florida A&M College of Law, where he earned a Juris Doctor. Ed began his career working as a tour manager for artists such as Earth, Wind & Fire, as well as ASAP Rocky. He also authored the book Building Fans, Fame and Wealth, The 18 Revenue Streams of Music. Ed has traveled around the nation speaking to colleges, high schools, and conferences about what it takes to make a viable career in the music industry. He now also offers legal counseling to musicians that require his services. In his legal practice, Ed also represents those that have been mistreated in matters such as wrongful termination, discrimination, unpaid wages, medical leave, and whistleblower cases. Ed volunteers his time to serve as a guardian ad litem for children in need, serves as a legal observer to protect the rights of demonstrators in peaceful protests, and aids in providing legal services to artists through Lawyers of the Creative Arts. Ed, the floor is now yours.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction. Jordan and I were just talking about, how COVID is a terrible, terrible, terrible time. But one of the upsides to this time is that, I feel so much closer to the Monmouth community than I've ever felt before. And, I'm currently working as a stakeholder for, things with the Monmouth community, which wouldn't have happened before because I'm here in Orlando and the distance would ordinarily be a barrier. Things like this, the distance would probably ordinarily be a barrier. So it is really cool to be able to connect with you guys on Zoom, on the internet, and give this presentation. So the title of my presentation is Patience and Persistence, Enjoying the Road to Success. So I do hope that you guys enjoy what I've put together. As Jordan briefly covered, my name is Ed Wimp, and I'm a Monmouth College 2012 graduate. I was a business administration major, political science minor. I was about 1 credit short of a religious studies minor. One of the things I loved about Monmouth was that you could get such a breadth of knowledge. It wasn't just going in and zeroing in on your main major, but you could really just dabble and take a lot of different courses and really leave the school with a well-rounded education. As she mentioned, after that I went off to get a master's degree and then go to law school. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that I was a really, really poor student growing up before Monmouth. I had a really hard time, just academically. It was never really important to me, but I think above all else, I had this preconceived notion that school wasn't for me and that I wouldn't succeed in school. And year after year, my mother and my dad would, talk to me before the new school year would start. Growing up as a child, and they'd say, "All right, Ed, let's try to figure out how we can get you to be a better student." They would get tutors for me. They tried everything in the book, and it was just that preconceived notion that I wasn't a strong student. Finally, high school came around, and I still struggled with school. It got a little bit better, but I still struggled. And I came into contact with Peter Pitts, which I'm sure a lot of you know. He was the old admissions counselor for Monmouth College. And he offered to give me, he recommended that I be accepted to the school. I mean, I certainly wasn't, on paper academically a star student from high school, but he vouched for me and I got in. And I remember, when I started new at Monmouth, being terrified, going into the process. I was never strong at school. I was never a good student. I had this stigma within myself that I wouldn't succeed in school. And I knew I had to reinvent myself and recreate myself. So I did just that. And I learned a very, very valuable lesson through the cultivation of the Monmouth College community, that your past doesn't have to be your future. And that, whatever, if you weren't good at something before, the only thing that's keeping you not good at that is yourself and your mentality and your approach to it. So I was able to go to Monmouth College and really change the course of my academic career and get a master's degree afterwards and go to law school afterwards. And now I'm a practicing attorney. And I'm sure none of my friends in middle school or high school would have imagined that I'd, go to graduate school with the grades that I had. But it truly does speak to your past does not have to be your future. You can make the affirmative decision at any juncture of your life to change the course of it and to pursue what you want to pursue and to be who you ultimately want to be. So going into my presentation, I wanted to start out with a poem that I truly, that speaks to me personally. This presentation is called Patience and Persistence, Enjoying the Road to Success. And I think this poem embodies enjoying the road to success and enjoying the road to a goal. I'm sure many of you have heard this poem before. It's relatively popular, but I'll read it for you and you can read along. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. This poem's always resonated with me, so I think it accurately portrays the contrast between having a definitive goal you need to get to, but also taking time to stop and smell the roses, to enjoy the goal, to enjoy the process of getting there. This person's on a horse and he's obviously got to get somewhere. Who knows where he has to get, but he's on a horse on a mission to get somewhere. And he stops to watch the snowfall, to just observe his surroundings. And this is crucial. Whenever we're on some sort of a journey, working towards some sort of a goal, there's no enjoyability in just pursuing that goal and pursuing the goal. Because goals, like when we accomplish goals, we don't actually really get long-term gratification from that. You accomplish the goal, you celebrate for the time being, then that goal just becomes your life. And that goal no longer has the same meaning that it had before, and you have a new goal, and you're always working towards another goal. So it's important to enjoy that process of pursuing the goal, enjoy the struggle. I know that many times when I look back on college, for example, when I was in college, I wanted that college degree. But when I look back on college, I enjoyed the time that I was in college. I enjoyed going through the process. I enjoyed my friends. I enjoyed going to the classes. I enjoyed learning. That's what college was about. It wasn't just about that degree. It was more about the experience in getting that degree. So towards the end of this poem, the woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. It's the analyzation that, yes, these woods are beautiful. Yes, there's a lot that's out here that's tempting that I would love to stay and just observe my beautiful surroundings. But I do still have that mission, I still need to keep on track. So the road to success is very similar to this. Yes, you're trying to get to that successful point, but the road itself is where the gratification lies and where the lessons are learned. I touched on this briefly while reading that poem, but the notion that success is infinite. And I think that many times we get boggled down with this notion of destination addiction, that if we just were able to accomplish this one goal, or if we were able to make this amount of money, or if we were able to buy this car, or if we were able to just do this one thing, that all of our problems will be alleviated. But that's just not the case. I'm a firm believer that there's no accomplishment or possession or anything that you can have that will alleviate your issues. What you need to come to peace with is everything between those goals, everything between those accomplishments, and fall in love with the process of accomplishing. For as long as we live, we're going to be accomplishing new things and finding success in more and more things. And success can range. You know, there's short-term goals, there's long-term goals. The fact of the matter is that we'll be successful in the large majority of them. We have multiple deadlines at work that we will reach, but if we just worry about the deadline itself, there's no happiness in that. We need to find happiness in the process of reaching all of these deadlines and all of these goals. So I think that the takeaway is that we can not only look to success for gratification. There's a lot more that falls within gratification than just success. So pressing on to this title that I've named this speech, patience and persistence. So why these two words? What does that even mean, right? And I don't know what it is, but patience and persistence, these two words are just ringing in my head every time that I'm tasked with a goal that I either assign for myself or a goal that's assigned to me, something that I just don't want to do. These words always ring. And at first glance, they seem as though they're an oxymoron. They seem as though they don't quite fit together. They appear as though they're opposites, right? We look at patience, and many times we think of patience as taking a slow route, possibly even the negative connotation that it's a lackadaisical approach. And then we look at persistence, and many times we think the opposite. Many times we think persistence is being annoying, or persistence is stressing. But neither one of these are the case. And if we look at them together, they provide a nice balance for a way to approach any task in life and any goal that we look to accomplish. When I was writing my book, Building Fans, Fame, and Wealth, the 18 Revenue Streams of Music, I knew that so I started out, the reason I wrote the book is because I was doing a lot of speaking engagements to musicians or, at different conferences, in colleges and high schools, and teaching people how to build a viable music career. And people were booking me for consulting engagements. And I was realizing, there's no way that I have enough time in my schedule to be able to meet with all of these people. And I need to figure out a way that I can get all of my thoughts down on paper in a book and sell this book to people so that more people can access this information. So I started out, and this was a daunting process. When I looked at it from the beginning, it's like looking at Mount Everest and trying to figure out how you're going to get up there. A book is not an easy feat to come by. Writing it is difficult, and then that's just the beginning part of it. How do you get it printed? How do you get the graphic design for it? How do you get it formatted? How do you get it in stores? How do you get it in front of people? So what I did was I just one day started on my computer and I just started writing, right? I just started the process, and I was patient in the respect that, this book's not going to get written overnight. It's not going to be released tomorrow. It's not going to be released next year, probably. But if I just start and I don't stress the time, one day it'll be a little bit further along, and then I'll cross the next bridge when I get to it, and the next bridge, and the next bridge. Then hopefully one day it'll be in somebody's hands. I was also persistent in the sense that every day I did something with that book. So, and during no days did I do too much. There was never a day when I burned the candle at both ends and let that exhaust me. I was never exhausted writing the book. But every day I would get up and I would do, some days it'd be a chapter, other days it'd be a few paragraphs. But I was persistent in that, but patient the whole time, knowing that this will not happen anytime soon. So in total, the whole process took me about 2 years. And I was actively working on tour during this process. So many times I'd be on the bus working, or I'd be on a plane writing, or I'd get to the hotel and write. And it took me about 2 years, and I finished the book, finally got to the stage where it was ready to, we were ready to look into graphic design work, ready for the formatting. And sure enough, one day I had a book. And, people constantly, ask, oh my God, how much time did it take? How did you find the time to do that? That's such a big task. And it's not. If you just do one small thing every day towards anything, you will get there. So the first time that I ever put patience and persistence to the test was with that book. And it worked. It certainly worked. And I now have a book that is in Barnes & Noble, on Amazon, and I'm very proud of that work. Not just because I'm proud of the content itself, but I'm proud of the lessons that I learned through writing it. So I touched on patience and persistence in my free form speech to you guys, but I wanted to also break it down to these bullet points just to better identify what I mean by patience. And as I mentioned just now briefly, it's understanding that success will not happen immediately, nor wishing for it to happen immediately. Anything that's worth doing does take time. There's a reason why certain things are so important to you. It's because it doesn't come easily. And that's specifically why it's so important that you accomplish it. And that's why you hold it near to your heart when you do. So it's certainly understanding that this is supposed to take a long time. And lastly, it's making the most of where you are while you're there. There were times when I was in college where I wanted to be done with college. I wanted to have my degree, and I wanted to move on with my life. I wanted to be able to use my degree to finally start working and making some money. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized, okay, that certainly is the reason why you're there. That's the reason why you're in college. But there's so much more that college has to offer. And there's a lot about that time that you'll never have again. You'll never live on a campus with a bunch of your closest friends again. That's just not something that, that happens. So there's a lot of things that if we just continue to look forward, we miss all that we're experiencing during the time. And that goes back to that Robert Frost poem of, yes, you might be on a mission, you might be moving towards something, but don't forget to take the time to appreciate where you are in that moment. And then persistence, a couple breakdowns here. I'll start with this quote that I heard a while ago. Ambition is the path to success, and persistence is the vehicle you arrive in. So commonly, especially during my time consulting with musicians, a lot of people will say, oh, Ed, I want this so badly. I want to be this artist so badly. I want blank so badly. And that's great. That's wonderful that you want it badly, but wanting something is not nearly half the battle to actually getting it. Everyone wants something. Everyone wants to do something. Everybody wants something for their life. But the ambition and the want is not enough. The ambition has to be paired with some constant action to get there. And you look at a lot of athletes, and not only do they want to be the best athlete, but they're shooting free throws for hours on end, or they're making practice putts on the green for hours on end. And that is where success comes from. That's the persistence. Those are those actions that you do every day that create those habits that actually ultimately end in success. The next one, success is on the other side of many small repetitive actions, which I just touched on. And success is not nearly as heroic as we're led to believe. We have this thing in society that we think that, people become successful overnight, or are watching the Super Bowl and see this, great pass where, the wide receiver catches the ball and the team wins and they go off to victory. Well, yes, that's a great play. It was a great action, but it's not as heroic as it looks. These people have been training to do this their whole entire lives. And it's the result of a lot of small repetitive actions every day of their life practicing that ultimately ends in what looks to be heroic, but it's not heroic. We're all capable of doing grand, big things if we just put a little bit towards it every day. I wanted to touch a bit on one of the better experiences of my life, which was touring and being on the tour management staff of Earth, Wind & Fire. And this also plays into the patience and persistence theme of this presentation and how I even started working with Earth, Wind & Fire. And then it plays into the enjoying the road to success theme with everything that I learned while working with Earth, Wind & Fire. So I was coming up on my time ending at Monmouth, and I really did not know what the future held for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It's kind of a scary thing when you're about to graduate from anywhere and just be released into the world and with no real direction. And you've had this routine for the past 4 years of, waking up, going to the cafeteria, eating and going to class, and then just being released into the world and having to figure out what your calling is or why you're even, where you'll go with your career. So Monmouth College was coming to an end, and it was around February. And I was aware that a family friend of ours was the tour manager for Earth, Wind & Fire. So I figured, okay, I've played music my whole life, and but it had been a dream of mine to always work in music at a larger level. So not just to play, during my personal music career of playing music, I've toured extensively, but never on a huge, grand, big level, right? So I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to work with an artist where I was touring on a big level, playing working at amphitheaters and traveling overseas to tour and whatnot. So I contacted this family friend and I asked him, is it possible that I could somehow get involved in the music industry with you in some capacity, some shape or form? And he essentially told me, let me know when you're coming up on finishing your college degree and contact me and I'll let you know. So sure enough, I was patient, and that I wasn't, stressing it. I finished my time at Monmouth College and I passed all my final exams, God willing, thank God. It was definitely nerve-wracking. And graduated, and I finally, reached out to him again and said, hey, I know that you said that there might be a chance that I could work with you, and I'm just following up. I'd like to see if there's an opportunity. So it took a few phone calls. I was persistent, not annoying persistent, but I let him know that it was important to me. I let him know that, I'm going to actively look for this opportunity. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I do hope that it does work because I'm a hard worker and I'm going to get the job done. So he finally invited me out to a show in Chicago, right? I lived in Chicago at the time. He invited me to a show to shadow him for the day. So basically I showed up, it was middle of June, 2012, right after I graduated college in 2012, and showed up and shadowed him the whole day. And he put me to work. I did some merchandise work. I did just different work for that show. And when the show came to an end, he invited me to come out on the second leg of the tour. So that summer, there were two legs of the tour. There's one that was ending maybe a week after that show. And then starting in like mid-July, there was another leg of the tour that was going for like another month. So he invited me to come out on the second leg of that tour, which I was shocked. I certainly did not think that he would then at that time invite me to come on the tour. And that patience and persistence was working. So that turned into a job. And the crazy thing about touring, the crazy thing about, being on the road is that it's such a fast-paced life. It's fun. You're doing a lot of really cool things, but it's so fast-paced, you don't really many times get the chance to enjoy what you're doing. And there's a couple moments that come to mind that I want to share from my time with Earth, Wind & Fire, where, and at a time when it's difficult to slow down, it's difficult to stop and observe all that's around you. But there's a few times when I was truly able to do it and just enjoy the moment. And one of those times was in London when we had done so I grew up a big fan of the Beatles. I've always loved the Beatles, one of my favorite groups of all time. And we had a show at Abbey Road. This was a small private event, and I forget exactly who it was for, but it was for some London stockbrokers or some elite group of people that somehow had rented out Abbey Road, and Earth, Wind & Fire was playing a show at Abbey Road Studios, which, as you guys know, is where Beatles recorded albums. There's been a lot of legendary albums recorded there. It's probably the most famous studio in the world. So we're, at Abbey Road, and Earth, Wind & Fire plays, and it's a normal day. We're hustling, and we're making the show happen, and we're putting everything together. Show happens, and it turns out for that week, for a few days we were staying in London, so we weren't traveling anywhere else. I know we had a show in London. We had at least 2 shows or 3 shows in London, or not far from London. So we were staying at the same hotel in London. And following that show, we got everything sorted out after the show, and I just sat in one of the dressing rooms, which was one of the studios. The studios in Abbey Road had been transformed into dressing rooms for this event. And I just sat there, and enjoyed a glass of wine and just thought about what had just happened. Here I am. I think the Beatles were my first CD that I ever owned when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old. And here I am sitting in Abbey Road, enjoying a glass of wine after doing a show there with Earth, Wind & Fire. And, it was just one of those moments where I was just thankful that I had just taken the time to stop and enjoy. And of course I could have, hopped in the car and head back to the hotel and kept the night going and just, and just kept that energy going and kept the mission going. But it was stopping and taking that time to reflect that I'll never forget as long as I live. Another occurrence was when I remember back in 2016, unfortunately, there was a terrible shooting in Orlando at Pulse nightclub. and many people were killed. And I remember, and I was in Orlando when that shooting occurred. And I remember that morning, I woke up and I had a bunch of text messages, just asking if I was okay. And I wasn't at the club. I was sleeping when this shooting occurred. But my friends, from Chicago and whatnot didn't know that. They just heard there was a mass shooting at a club in Orlando. They were texting me and asking if I was okay. Then I logged on Facebook, and they had just come up with that mark yourself safe feature on Facebook. That if there had been some terrible, calamity in your proximity, you can mark yourself safe and alert your friends and family that you're okay. So I remember checking off that, clicking that button and marking myself safe. And then about a month later, I was out with Earth, Wind & Fire, and we had just finished a show in Switzerland, and we had traveled overnight to Nice, France, and arrived at the hotel in the morning to find out that there had been a terrible terrorist attack at Bastille Day in Nice, and a truck had basically just like gone down this road and hit a bunch of people, innocent people. And our show was supposed to be in Nice that night. So basically the whole city of Nice was in a state of emergency, and our show was canceled. So we were there, but there was no show. And I recall they still had catering set up. So if in our hotel was just down the street from where the show was supposed to be. So if we wanted to go get catering, we could go down there and eat, but there was no show. So I went down with a few other band members and went down to catering, and we ate on the ocean. And it was a beautiful sunset. But it was just the most eerie time, an eerie process to just be sitting here eating when there was supposed to be all this, all these people and all this commotion and all this excitement. And here we were just eating catering, all by ourselves, and at this eerie time when all this horror had just occurred. And again, it was one of those times when, sometimes it's important to just stop and slow down and think about what you're experiencing. Truly soak it in and think about what you're experiencing, and slow down from just the grudge and just the pressing on. And during that time, it really taught me, I know that many times, we're very hard on ourselves as Americans many times. But it taught me that there's tragedy everywhere, and that we need to realize that and be more kind with each other from that perspective. Just a month earlier, it happened in Orlando, and here I was halfway across the world, and there was still tragedy. So that was the lesson I took away from that, and the big takeaway. So moving on. So when we're looking at our goals, and I know I touched on this a bit before, I shared that Earth, Wind & Fire story because that was part of, I started working with that group when I was at a huge juncture in my life, when I wasn't sure which direction I was going in. But I knew that I wanted to work towards something that I would be happy with. And I started out with Earth, Wind & Fire at a low level. I didn't go in there and just start running the show. I started out as a low level, low on the totem pole for staff managers, for tour managers. And for anybody watching this that's, on the verge of graduating from Monmouth, or maybe you guys already had graduation, I'm not really sure. I know it's around this time. It's important to realize that anything worth doing takes time, and you cannot just choose the quickest route to success. There is no quick route. There is no easy way to get to where you'd like to go. So whether you're looking to go to graduate school, that's going to take time. It's going to take considerable time. Whether you're looking to pursue a career where you're going to start out at a low level, that's going to take time. Anything that's worth doing will take time. And that brings me to my next point, that the time is going to pass regardless of whether you're working towards a goal or not. So let's say that you want to do some sort of master's program, or you want to go to law school or medical school. Understand that, yeah, it might be a rough road. It might be tiring. It might be a drag. You might hate it. Who knows? But at the end of the day, that time is going to pass anyway. I have a friend who's very close to me. He's older. He's maybe 35, 36 years old. He's older than I am. And he wants to go to law school. And he kept saying to me, Ed, I'm just too old to do it. I can't, at this point in my life, go back to school. But then in the same breath, he would tell me how badly he wants to be an attorney, and all these things that he would do if he were an attorney, and all these ways that he would change his career path if he were an attorney. And at the end of the day, I told him, if you're 36 now, you're going to be 39 at some point, regardless of if you go to law school or not. Would you rather be 39 doing what you want to do, or would you rather be 39 doing the same thing you're doing now, which he's told me was not making him happy? So my advice in that respect is that you're never too old to reinvent yourself. And that time is going to pass whether you make use of it or whether you don't. So you might as well just start making use of that time. One tool, and I'm not just saying this from a biased perspective because I'm an attorney and do this day in and day out, but one tool that I've found to be very helpful is the power of negotiating. And I think that many times negotiating has such a negative secondary meaning to it. Many times people think negotiating is, when you're trying to buy a car and trying to talk down the price, but that's just one form of negotiation. Really, we negotiate every single day of our lives, whether we're negotiating with our loved ones, with our spouse, with our teachers, with our coworkers. We negotiate in traffic. We let people, merge, or we don't let people merge. We're constantly negotiating. We're negotiating when we're grocery shopping. We're constantly negotiating. So negotiating isn't always, that stereotypical negotiating with, a car salesman, but really it's negotiating with the universe. It's what you represent to the universe and how you communicate with the universe in order to make everyone around you whole. It's not you strong-arming people and trying to get your way, but it's a way to get a win-win situation for everyone or everything involved. And as we shift through life, how we navigate these situations becomes incredibly crucial to our success, right? How we make people feel, the things that we give to people, the things that we receive from people. That's crucial to our success. So key considerations of negotiation are who negotiates. As I just said, we all negotiate in some way or another. Where do negotiations occur? Everywhere. We're constantly negotiating. And even in grocery stores, we're negotiating. Yeah, there might be a fixed price on apple juice, but if you don't like that price, then you leave the store. And that's part of negotiating. We're constantly negotiating. What's negotiable? Everything. And why negotiate? As I just mentioned, it's our relationship with the universe. It's the way that we make people and ourselves happy. So I have this definition of negotiation up here. And it's essentially finding mutually agreeable solutions to reach satisfactory objectives. And when looking at the road to success, when looking at setting goals and accomplishing those goals, it's important to kind of follow this chart of and take into account these considerations every step of the way. So it's important when you're setting a goal for yourself, a negotiation for yourself, is know what you're trying to accomplish. What are you setting out to even do? What's your goal? If you want to have a specific goal. If your goal is broad, you'll just be wandering around and not actually accomplishing anything. So set a goal. Develop a game plan before negotiations start. Now, I'll say this. Developing a game plan is important, and you should certainly have one. But I believe it was, I think it was Mike Tyson that said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So understand that your plan might not always work. Be malleable. Be willing to change your plan, but have a plan. Absolutely have a plan. The next, study and understand your counterpart. What are you up against? What are you trying to accomplish? What are the pitfalls of what you're up against? What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? Understand that. Work towards a win-win. I think this is the crux of negotiations in general. It is working towards a win-win situation. It's not working towards a win-lose. It's not saying, I want this and I'm going to get it at any cost necessary, or I want this and I'm going to bulldoze this person to get this. That's not negotiating. Negotiating is working towards a win-win situation. It's understanding what somebody else wants and understanding what you want and understanding how those two things can work together and ultimately benefit each other. Avoid negotiating with yourself. Negotiating takes give and take. React strongly to an untrustworthy party. You can't always trust everyone. Not everybody's going to be there in good faith to negotiate with you and to find a solution. So it's important to understand this and have your guard up against people that are looking to take advantage or that are looking to negotiate in bad faith, or situations in your life that are not good for you. And lastly, remember that it takes two parties to negotiate or renegotiate. And this harkens back to the work towards a win-win situation. You need to understand who you're negotiating with and work towards a mutual agreement that's going to benefit both people. And as I said, negotiation isn't always with another person. Sometimes it is with yourself. Sometimes it's with something. I'm coming towards the end of my presentation, but I wanted to get this in here because I think about this constantly with negotiation. The grass is not greener anywhere else. I think it's human nature to sometimes want to have other skill sets or to be good at something that maybe you're just not good at. And what we need to always remember is that we all have a competitive advantage. We all have something that somebody else would like to have or that somebody else could utilize. We all have skill sets that are advantageous to us. So instead of looking at other people's lives and saying, I wish I had that skill set, or I wish I had this or that, say, okay, they are able to do this. I'm able to do something else that's of value. So perhaps we can work together in some particular way that's mutually beneficial to both of us. So, the grass is not always greener approach just simply says that everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. It's a matter of how you leverage and use those strengths and weaknesses in getting ahead. So just to leave you guys with at the end of my presentation, I want to leave it the same way I started it, with the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go before I sleep. And as long as you're patient and persistent, you will enjoy the road to success. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. So what I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to invite all of our attendees to become panelists so that you are able to show yourself on screen if you'd like to ask Ed any questions. So let me do that real quick. A couple people, it looks like, are jumping off.
All right.
Okay. It's the lunch hour. Same. Let's see. All right. I think I've invited everybody who's in the room now. So if you want to turn your camera on or even just your audio on, you can ask Ed any questions that you might have about his presentation or about his experiences, both as a lawyer and when he was on the road with some of those great groups. Hi, guys. Any questions or anything? Or just to say hi?
Well, thank you guys for joining. I do want to thank you for that. It does mean a lot.
I thought it was very well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thought it was very well done, and I like the concept of patience and persistence.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was very sound advice because there are so many people in a hurry to do things to get somewhere that I actually just had to remind a student, you're a freshman. You should not be planning your master's thesis right now.
Right.
And she didn't get it. She goes, no, but I have to continue. And I said, in what? How do you know as a freshman? I mean, come on. Did any of us know as a freshman what we wanted to do when we were at Monmouth? No.
No.
But this generation is like, I have to plan for my future. So yeah, I have a student working on her graduate thesis and she just finished her freshman year.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, no, stop, slow down. But there's a lot of people that would benefit from listening to something like this saying, yeah, slow down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All
And
right.
this presentation will be available on the Monmouth College website. So Michelle, if you'd like to share this with your student or any of your students, feel free.
Well, yeah, I'm going to. And so beyond the background, which is just hiding my junky office, I'm going to talk to, so I'm at another university and I don't know, I might reach out to you, Ed, saying maybe you could do a session with them because we have broadcast communications and all these different things. I think your time on tour would help them understand that their senior capstone performance doesn't have to be the best on the world and that you're not going to be on America's Got Talent right now. You need to take some time and figure this out. So,
Right.
And I think people are forgetting that.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to, and we can stay in contact and whenever, just let me know.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Well, we're done with school. Yeah, so we had graduation too.
Sure.
And just so the alumni office knows, Jordan, I did wear tartan. I have a tartan stole that I got, and I wore it very proudly here in Southeast Michigan. And everybody's looking at me like, "And that's not our school colors." And I'm like, I don't care if it's our school colors. This is my school colors. And that's the biggest thing is Andy would agree. Right, Mr. President?
Correct.
See, I'm trying to out-tartan that guy also on the screen named Zach, who is head to toe tartan all the time.
Yes.
That would be hard to do.
Yeah, I know, but
it's a good goal to have.
Yeah. And Zach's like mysteriously quiet and we don't see him, but I'm sure he's wearing tartan something.
Ed, really, thank you so much for that presentation. It's really inspiring to hear a lot of what you're saying in great direction. Yeah, I'm excited for your speech to be on the website so more alumni can take a look at it along with students, because a lot of things that you've done are really interesting and exciting to hear about.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, with Molly's remarks, then we'll go ahead and wrap up today's presentation. Thank you so much, Ed, for taking the time to put this together for us. And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. As a reminder, we will have a survey pop up on your screen at the end of the webinar, so you can give us some ideas for the spring. Let us know what you thought about today's event. One note, our last event of the semester, Monarch Life and Migration, has been postponed till the fall. There were a few conflicts that came up. So we still will be doing that event, but it will not be happening this June. Other than that, thank you everyone so much, and have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.